The Shatchakra Kshetra Darshana. As you said, it is the travel inside. Kshetram is an important aspect with respect to Hinduism because we have so many Kshetras all around the Jambudvipa or the Bharatavarsha. And it is a part of our activity to visit temples. But we fail to understand one important thing is we go to temple for the purpose of stop going to the temple. Because the realization happens within yourself. Once you realize that, then the external visits actually stops. But till that you need all these things. Yataf Brahmande, Tataf Pindande, Yataf Pindande, Tataf Brahmande. What that is inside the body is very much there in the cosmos. That which is there in the cosmos is inside the body. That is actually your Kshetra Darshanam is your travel within. But normal human beings are not ready for the travel. So we are advised to go to all these temples, visit all these places, have darshanam, do all these rituals, so that we get prepared for the internal travel. That is the actual Kshetra Darshanam. The inner travel is done by the travel of the Kundalini Shakti. Kundalini, you might be knowing, the serpent power, which is actually inside the human body. This inner journey of the Kundalini from Mooladhara Chakra to Sahasrara Chakra is indicated with the outer journey of these temples. The inner fulfillment, what you achieve, is arrived with this outer journey. So this is the perfect equation between the human existence and the external world. That is the speciality of our religion or our dharma. Whatever is within you, you can always experience that outside. Lalita Sahasranama says, Antarmukha Samaradhya. Antarmukha Samaradhya. One who is worshipped very much inside. But for normal human beings, it is not an easy task. So the next Nama says, Bahirmukha Sudurlabha. It is somewhat difficult, but definitely you can achieve that through external rituals. Many people say the ritualistic worship and the visiting temples is of a basic level. Definitely no. That is the training ground for you. And that is where you derive your energy and experience what you will have to actually undergo through your internal travel. So this travel of Kundalini from Mooladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipuraka, Anahata, Vishuddhi, Ajna. The six chakras are there in the subtle body, not in the gross body, but subtle body. We have all these Shat chakras. These 6 chakras are identified with 6 temples. So, by practicing yoga, by practicing tapas, what a person, what an individual is going to achieve, at least a part of that gets stimulated by visiting these temples. That is the very purpose of identifying the Shatchakra temples. The devotee or the seeker, he looks deeply into his mind to freely travel to each region of his mind in his true inner body. And ultimately, the jiva identifies the state of perfect wisdom in the 7th chakra, that is Sahasrara chakra. Once you cross all these 6 chakras, you reach the 7th chakra. All these would be a very difficult subject to explain in a talk like this. but definitely that can be practically experienced in the Kshetra Darshanam. So this is actually a structure for every deity, not only for Ayyappan, for Shasta, it is for every deity. When the Paramatma assumes a particular form, we say Ekameva Dvitiyam. It is only one Brahman assuming different forms. And you have that liberty in our Dharma to worship the Lord in whatever form you like. That is the speciality of our Dharma. You can even refuse the existence of God and still be a Hindu. If you are interested in doing bhajans, you are very much allowed for that. If you are interested in meditation, you can very much practice that. If you are more interested in service activity, you are very much welcome. If you are interested only in visiting more and more temples, even then, that is a part of religious practice. That freedom is given to you. So if your mind is identified with one particular form of a deity, and you see that particular deity as Parama Purusha, in that case, the Shatchakra Kshetra differs from deity to deity. So the Paramatma assumes the form of Shakti. There are 6 different set of temples as Shatchakra Kshetra temples. For Shiva, there is another set. For Subramanya, it is different. For Shasta, it is different. If it is Shakti, for example, it starts from Valmikapura. Valmikapura is Thiruvarur near Tanjore, Tamil Nadu, as Mooladhara Kshetram. Finally, it goes to Kashi as Ajna Chakram. For Subramanya, in Tamil Nadu, it is very popular as Aru Padai Veedu. 6 abodes of the Lord. The 6 abodes are considered as the 6 Shatchakra temples. And the 7th chakra, Kadurgamam, is the Sahasrara chakra. So Kadurgamam at Sri Lanka is considered as the 7th chakra. Coming to the famous thing for Shasta, Muktarya Kshetram is the Mooladhara chakra and Ajna chakram is Shabarimala. So for each deity, the set of temple is different, and according to the nature of the deity, the experience one receives at each kshetra differs. Nowadays, only Shabarimala is thronged by thousands and thousands of devotees. Every day, there are so many other temples which are almost aloof and remain in solitude in all 365 days. And only very age-old, sincere seekers or devotees follow the style of the Yatra, Kshetra Yatra, which is actually a life-transforming experience. When you do it in the particular prescribed method, the mere pilgrimage becomes a life-transforming experience. So once the process of 6 chakras are properly activated, the Sahasrara chakra is experienced. Sahasrara chakra, once you experience that, it is the Atma Darshanam itself. That Atma Darshanam is actually moksha. People generally say when a saint or when a sadhu, when he leaves his mortal coil, they say he has attained moksha. Moksha is not leaving your body. You can experience moksha even when you are living. Once you understand the truth, the reality, once you see yourself, that is moksha. That is moksha dhanam. Now coming to the Mooladhara chakra. For Devi it is said, as I said, Valmikapura Madhyastha. For Shasta, the Mooladhara Kshetra is Muktarya Kshetram. The Muktarya Kshetram is in Tamil Nadu. It is in the actually borders of Tamil Nadu and Kerala. It is the place where Shasta gave darshanam to Agastya Maharishi. Today it is called Ponchoriyum Muttaiyan Temple. In Puranic name it is Muktarya Kshetram. The Muktarya Kshetram. Originally it is claimed to be a part of Kerala. And during the time of Martanda Varma, this temple was actually gifted to the kings of Tamil Nadu. The darshan to Agastya at this spot, holy spot, signifies the experiences the devotee gets after transcending from his own lower nature. A normal devotee, he goes to a temple for the purpose of getting something. That is the starting stage of spiritual life. More or less like a business. When you go there, you pray something, and you actually strike a business deal with the Lord. If this particular thing is done, I will offer my prayers like this. That is actually a stepping stone for the first step of your spiritual progress. So when the Mooladhara Chakra, the Kundalini is activated, it gives security, inner purity, and starts burning all the negative karmas. So your mind is now somewhat under control, and what you aspire, you can easily start obtaining that. That is the process of the actual process that is happening in the Mooladhara Chakra. That is what a person experiences with this kshetras. So as I said, for Devi, the 6 temples are listed in a text called Garbhakularnava Tantra. The Garbhakularnava Tantra lists out the 6 temples: Valmikapura Madhyastha, Jambuvana Nivasini, Arunachala Shringastha, Vyagrale Nivasini, Sri Kalahasti Nilaya, Kashipura Nivasini, Srimad Kailasa Nilaya, Dwadashanta Maheshwari. So Valmikapura Madhyastha is the Mooladhara Kshetram. Jambuvana Nivasini is Swadhisthana Kshetram. Like that, for 6 temples of Devi is listed in that Garbhakularnava Tantra. Similarly, there is another text called Shrikara Tantra and Mahashastru Puja Kalpadrum. In both these texts, the 6 temples of Shasta is listed. So basically, when Mooladhara Chakra is activated, a person's basic prayers are answered. It is something like a visiting card by which you are attracted towards the spiritual life. When your basic prayers are answered, you get attracted to this way of life and start entering the spiritual zone. The second step is the Swadhisthana Chakra. Swadhisthana is one's own abode. It is actually, to be precise, Swadhisthana Chakra itself is enough for a normal human being to live a contented life. We generally call it as a home of completeness. Because once you experience that, when Swadhisthana Chakra is activated, you start to experience what is bliss. You just stop, stand quietly, and you can feel that bliss, and you will be able to absorb that bliss. That is what you experience in the temples which are associated to Swadhisthana Chakra. Coming to this, for Shasta, the temple is Achangovil. In Puranic name, it is known as Tata Devalayam, Swadhishthanot Viharam, Tata Devalayastam. It is what it is said. Swadhishthanam. This Tata Devalayam or Achangovil is located in the borders of Tamil Nadu and Kerala again. And this temple is actually famous for curing poisonous snake bites. There is no special treatment given, but within the vicinity of the temple or the temple town, any devotee who is experiencing snake bites is just brought inside the temple. He is made to stand in front of the Lord, and the Lord will be having a sandal paste in his hand that will be applied at the spot where the snake bite has happened, and the affected person has to stay there. Next morning he can leave. I personally witnessed this for some around 3-4 years back. I saw a 10-year-old boy. Actually, the temple was closed. It was around 8:30, 9 o'clock in the night. The boy was brought actually to the temple. The temple was again reopened. He was given the same treatment. Next day morning, the boy was very much all right. So this, even today, it is happening in Achangobi. Here, actually, the snake indicates the Kundalini. The second stage, that is second chakra, the Swadhisthana chakra. Once the Kundalini is awakened and travels from the Mooladhara to Swadhisthana, the person actually who is experiencing this movement, he starts attaining special powers, special siddhis. At times, he may become uncontrollable. So, a poison called ego crops up. So, that poison called ego is controlled at Swadhisthana chakra. Generally, when you get power, automatically you are corrupted. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, when you experience siddhi, when you are having powers, definitely you tend to do uncontrollable mistakes. So, that ego is controlled and depicted as snake bite. As I said, Swadhisthana, one's own abode. This indicates pure knowledge, pure concentration. This gives you the inner source of inspiration. Once you are inspired inside, you start experiencing or start enjoying the beauty of everything which is around you. It gives all the desires, and people generally, it is a tendency of human beings to fall to material temptation. And that is the reason. Exactly. There is a question here. Is that Shiva drink poison symbolizes this? Definitely. And there is another connection at Vishuddhi Chakra. I will come back to that when we reach Vishuddhi Chakra. And it is generally said, people who fall for siddhis or who get carried away with name and fame, they generally are stuck with this second chakra and they are unable to raise their Kundalini beyond this. And Mooladhara and Swadhisthana is called Brahma Granthi. Once you cross these two, Lalita Sahasranama, you have a nama called Brahma Granthi Vibedini. This, both Mooladhara and Swadhisthana form a set, and you will have to cross this. If you want to cross this, you will have to break the Brahma Granthi and then proceed further. Third chakra is Manipuraka chakra. Manipuraka chakra gives you constant happiness. It transforms a seeker or an aspirant from a universal or makes him experience the ananda, the bliss permanently. That is, his approach to the world or his thinking level will be totally changed from a normal human plane to an eternal or a different spiritual plane. When you come to Devi, it is Arunachala Shringastha. Arunachala is in Tamil Nadu. There is a temple Tiruvannamalai. Arunachala is a mountain actually. It has given birth to so many saints and so many great souls. Right from Ramana Maharshi, Seshadri Swami, and Yogiram Surat Kumar, so many saints are attracted to that place because of the happiness they experience at a particular spot. That is because of Manipuraka chakra, the third chakra. Even today, when you go to Tiruvannamalai, you need not do anything actually. Just by seeing the hill, the Arunachala hill, your entire thought process comes to standstill. It is actually a very difficult process. Controlling your thought is the most difficult thing. When you sit for meditation, right from your LKG class, everything comes into your mind. Totally unrelated things started coming and falling. But without any effort, effortlessly, just by looking at the hill, your entire thought process comes to standstill. And that is the reason the Manipura chakra gains much importance, because you're overcoming the second chakra, that is Swadhisthana chakra, and you are killing the ego and you are proceeding further. Now you start experiencing what is bliss. Slowly the worldly thoughts, or the what you call the expecting people's recognition or expecting appreciation, all the thought process is slowly coming down. You experience eternal happiness and raise to the spiritual plane from the normal human plane. Next comes the Anahata chakra, or what you call as Hridaya chakra. For Devi, it is called, the Anahata chakra is identified with Chidambaram. Though Chidambaram is actually popularly known for Nataraja, it is Shivagama Sundari who is making Nataraja dance. The cosmic dance of Nataraja is nothing but the dance of Devi. Vyagrale Nivasini, says the Tantra. The Hridaya chakra is the place where the spiritual heart lies, not the heart which is beating, but the spiritual heart lies here. So it gives you a direct cognition and direct comprehension with the divine force. So the aspirant actually, he experienced the consciousness, and he identifies himself with the existence. And undisturbed meditation becomes an easy process for him. And the aspirant actually starts experiencing miracles and what you call as chamatkar or something like that. Humanly impossible things starts happening once the Anahata chakra is experienced. For Shasta, the temple for Anahata chakra is Kulatupuzhi. It is actually located from Aryangavu to the Trivandrum highway. For Devi, it is Chidambaram. The Daharakasha is the place, is depicted as the Chidambara Rahasya, or the place where Nataraja is dancing actually. The next chakra is Vishuddhi chakra. Once the Vishuddhi chakra is amplified, there is no sense of consciousness of the physical body. And there was a question regarding Shiva drinking poison. And when you see a picture of Shiva, he is always depicted with a snake around his neck. Vishuddhi chakra is actually located in the neck region, which indicates actually when a person who is experiencing the rise of Kundalini, even after experiencing the Atma Darshanam, he can very well bring down the Kundalini back to the Vishuddhi chakra. And only if the Kundalini is maintained in the Vishuddhi chakra, even though being a realized soul, he can interact with the normal human beings with us. Or else he'll be somewhere else. His level will be different. He'll be unapproachable. But we are actually seeing, or we have seen so many saints or jnanis who are actually self-realized souls, but they actually come down to our level and interact with us. That is because of the control over the Kundalini Shakti, which is placed at the Vishuddhi chakra. And that is what is depicted by Shiva wearing a snake around his neck. Shivam is nothing but the knowledge. Satyajnanam Anantam Brahma. That Brahma Swarupam is Shivam. You can see a picture. Whenever you see a picture of Shiva, definitely he'll be closing his eyes and meditating. He is meditating on who? On himself. That is Shiva Swarupam. Shiva is meditating on his Atma Swarupam. That Atma Swarupam, so a Jnani or a Jivan Mukta comes down to our level. That is indicated by Vishuddhi Chakra. For Shiva, the place of Vishuddhi Chakra is Kalahasti in Andhra Pradesh. For Shasta, it is Erimeli. And that is the reason they say before visiting Shabrimala, definitely one has to visit Erimeli. In this Vishuddhi Chakra, the entire consciousness lies there. Once you conquer the Vishuddhi Chakra, you have conquered your physical body. You have conquered your intellect. You have conquered your emotions. And that is the most difficult thing. Conquering your emotion is the most difficult thing in the world. That is actually possible with the amplification of Vishuddhi Chakra. The so-called self is actually killed. And the real truth of oneness is understood or experienced at this particular spot. Once the ego or the self is killed, what remains is jnana. And this is the same Kala is the Kshetram, which is identified for Vishuddhi Chakra for Devi too. And Devi is called Jnana Prasunambika. Sri Kalahasti Nilaya, Jnana Prasunambika. Jnana is the ultimate wisdom. And even at Erimeli, that is the starting point of Shabrimala Yatra, Lord Shasta is depicted as a hunter. The hunter does not kill any animals in the forest, but the inner animals. Adi Shankara says, Ragadveshadi Nanavida Murkapatali Bhidikrit Bhuta Bharta. There are so many animals in one particular forest. The animals are not lion or tiger or something else. It is my ego, my anger, my lust, my desire. All these animals, they just run away out of fear just by hearing your name. So those animals are most difficult, most dangerous than all these lion and tiger and panther and other animals, wild animals. So in this Vishuddhi Chakra, Shasta is depicted as a hunter who is actually killing your ego. Because only after killing your ego, one can proceed to the next chakra, that is Ajna Chakra, which is the ultimate bliss. And even at Kalahasti, you can see an association with a hunter. Kannappa, a hunter, actually worshipped Lord Shiva there. The association of hunter is an indication that the animal qualities has to be killed and the self has to be killed, and one has to proceed towards the ultimate bliss, which is Ajna Chakra. Needless to say, for Shiva and for Devi, the Ajna Chakra is Kashi. Kashi is the spiritual capital of Hinduism. Shiva Rajadhani. Even Vishnu is there in the name of Bindu Madhav. Shiva as Vishwanatha. Devi as Annapurna. And for Shasta, the Ajna Chakra is Shabrimala. So when it comes to Ajna Chakra, the magic is understood. It gives the benefits of all other chakras put together. The past life karma, which is accumulated in so many janmas, is destroyed. And there is a freedom from all conditioning. That is the major advantage. We are conditioned to so many things, and you get freedom from that conditioning. There is a freedom from attachment, freedom from appeasement of obsessions, freedom from desires, and continuous experience of non-duality. Only the ultimate truth is experienced. Only one, nothing else. The pure Advaita Bhavam is experienced in Ajna Chakra. The internal and external change, no longer it makes any difference. When the Kundalini and the point of awareness meet here, the state of Jnana or the state of enlightenment just remains there. The duality, somebody has asked a question regarding duality. Duality is Jivatma and Paramatma. Actually, both are one and the same. But due to this Maya, we think we are different from Lord. Actually, we are part and parcel of the ultimate Brahman. But we fail to experience that. And because of that, we think we are this body. Suppose we take a pen. We take a pen. Is this a pen? No. If we remove this, is this a pen? No. You remove this. Is this the pen? No. This? No. Similar thing is that you can compare it to our body. You are not this body. You are not this name by which you are called. You are not the life which you are experiencing. You are the Brahman. That is actually the non-duality. We fail to understand that. We think we are just this body. Just by this mere thought, we invite all troubles to ourselves. Once you understand the difference between Jivatma and Paramatma and break that barrier, definitely this experience of non-duality or the Ekameva Dvitiyam, the ultimate bliss is experienced. That is what you experience at Ajna Chakra. So when the Kundalini and the point of awareness meet here, the state of oneness or only the Atman is experienced. That is what is happening at Varanasi. That is what is happening at Sabarimala. And that is the reason at a place like Sabarimala, when you see or when you have the darshan of the Lord, you have been prescribed with so many strict rituals and so many practices to be followed even before coming to the temple. And only for serious sadhakas or serious seekers who are actually interested only in moksha, only they can venture into Sabarimala Yatra, and it is not a place of picnic for all others to come. And that is the speciality of the Ajna Chakra. And once this state of bliss is experienced at Ajna Chakra, as I said, the Jnanis or Jiva Muktas can actually have a control over their Kundalini Shakti and they can bring down to the Vishuddhi Chakra and interact with us. But for others, they may actually not able to, they may not be able to withstand the force in which the ultimate bliss is being experienced. And that is the reason one is suggested with all these strict Vrata Niyamas and other practices to prepare himself for this ultimate bliss. And once you cross all these 6 chakras, the 7th chakra, Sahasrara chakra, is the state of ultimate bliss, the joy of completion, which is actually poured over us. Inwardly, it is quiet, blissfully content, and we have accomplished inner fulfillment, which is actually arrived with this outer journey. Though not fully, for a yogi who has actually raised his Kundalini, for him the experience at Ajna Chakra is permanent. For a normal human being like us, we get a spark of that experience by this Kshetra Darsana, at least for a flick second. Only at very few Kshetras you get that. You forget what is time. You forget what is place. You forget what is happening around you. You have the Darshanam for, actually you will be having a Darshanam only for 2 or 3 seconds. But you will be having a feeling that you are standing there for hours together. That experience, which is actually understood by meditation or dhyana, is given to you in a split second at this kshetra. That is what you get at Ajna Chakra. Once you cross that, you reach the Sahasrara Chakra, the last milestone of the evolution of human awareness. The final destination of the Kundalini or the immortality is experienced at Sahasrara Chakra. And that is what is being practiced for centuries by our ancestors and rishis and yogis. Because yogi, just by sitting in one particular place, just by meditation, he can achieve all these things. But for normal human beings, we have our family, we have our livelihood, we have our day-to-day problems. Handling all those things, even we should be ready for spiritual life. And we are given the taste of that spiritual life by this Kshetra Darsana. So, whatever be your Ishta Devata, by undertaking the spiritual yatra, and those who are very serious about that, they can very well focus on that particular chakra, on that particular kshetra, and definitely help, they will definitely experience the Kundalini Shakti, and definitely they can transcend the Kundalini force from one chakra to the other. So, for centuries, sincere seekers who have performed this noble pilgrimage, Shat Chakra, Kshetra, Yatra, they have testified and they have got released from the worries and concerns of their life, and they have already reached the very purpose of human life, that is understanding the reality. And at Sahasrara Chakra, what you get is your Atma Darshana. At the end of all this yatra, what you experience is just seeing yourself. As I said in the beginning, finally, when this yatra is complete, there is no more yatra. There is no need for going to a temple again, because the very purpose of going to temple is achieved and you have seen yourself. The real you, not the body, not the mind, not the soul, but the real you. That Atma Darshanam is actually experienced by the sadhaka, by these proper Kshetra Darshanam. And that is the Shat Chakra Kshetra Darshanam, which can be experienced by every sincere seeker. That is the speciality of that. Not that only yogis can do this. Yogis can have this darshanam just by sitting in one single place. But even for a normal human being, he can at least have a taste of this experience. And that is the idea of our rishis who have consecrated these temples with this particular sankalpa. So those who are really serious about spiritual life, definitely they will have to undertake this spiritual yatra and experience the bliss, which is the actual goal of human life. Thank you.
Namaste, Arvind Swami.
Namaste.
It was really a valid period in the midst of so many confusion and commotions we go through. And your talk, actually, we are in half of the way of spiritual life. So it given a brief picture about the chakras and how it activates in the human body. And is that why there is a division between Shasta and other gods? Like there is no common chakras like you say for Shasta, it's different. And for other deities, different. Why is that division? It is like that? It's a tradition or?
It's not a question of tradition actually, because as I said earlier, each deity is a personification of some qualities. So each individual is identifying with one particular deity and he is proceeding in spiritual yatra. Shasta is a Yogishwara. So his temples are associated or consecrated in such a fashion. It is of a yogic way of life or yogic style. For Devi, it is totally different. You can very well actually see the experience or very well understand with naked eyes. You can see the energy which is emanating from a Devi shrine or from a Shiva shrine or from a Krishna shrine, because the same Krishna is being worshipped at Guruvayur, at Dwaraka, at Tirupati, and many other places. But the energy level is not the same in all these places. Am I right?
Yes, yes, I agree. And
so you are given the liberty to choose your path. In Hinduism, that is your speciality. In Sanatana Dharma, you are being given a liberty to choose your own path. So if your Ishtadevata is Devi, you can travel in that path. If it is Shasta, it is in this path. And that is the reason they have given these temples, associated these temples of Shatchakra for each and every deity. And if it is a common, this thing if you are talking about, there is no need for visiting any temple. You will have to just sit and close your eyes, which is not actually possible for us.
Thank you so much. And I just share a simple experience which I had now while you were talking. I felt some very beautiful vibration emanating inside me. This is something unbelievable. Namaste and my pranam and my namaskaram to you. I live in Auroville. I'm a staunch devotee of Sri Aurobindo and Mother.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Umaji. We are also welcome to more questions. I think there's one comment from Sumati ji in the chat box. She's saying, thank you for an enlightening talk. This concept of Shat Kshetram mapping to the chakras is something I'm learning for the first time. She's saying, is there a Shat Kshetram for Sri Mahavishnu?
Yes, it is there. But actually, to be frank, I'm yet to list out the temples because there are 2-3 sets of temples given in various texts. I am trying to authenticate it and I am trying to mapping it. The process of mapping it. So, once I finish that, definitely I'll bring out a book in the subject. Right now, I have temples for Devi, for Shiva, for Shasta, Subramanya, and all other deities. For Vishnu, there are 2-3 places which is actually under dispute. So, I'll have to properly map with the original text and the present kshetras. I'm working on that. Definitely, I'll bring out the list very soon.
Thank you, Arvindji. We look forward to your research and the list which comes out, because I think many of us would like to know about that. Yeah, I think it's a very nice thing to do. Any other questions? Anybody else?
Can I ask one question?
Yes.
So Arvindji, I would like to ask that how well devotees are aware when they visit these temples about Shat Chakra and mapping of temple, in the sense that you have explained it right now. So they visit it as per Shat Chakra's mapping, or they just go because of their devotion to that deity and come back?
Not even 0.1% devotees know this.
Right.
And as Krishna says, Arti Artati Jignaso Jnani, most of the devotees go to the temple for the purpose of doing business. Right. They go with the prayer and they start giving ranks to the deities. That deity is very much powerful. If you go there, all your prayers will be answered.
Right.
Ram sir, sorry for the interruption. You can see Aravind sir presence is giving that Sat Chakra experience. So seeing the Mahan like him, it is a real experience. So you just be with him, you get the Sat Chakra experience.
Sorry, I am not a Mahan, I am not a normal human
I
being.
can.
No, but we feel that it's not just for names for
So I
the
think,
talk and
my purpose
telling
of
this.
asking this
This
was
is
also
100%.
for, yes. So Arvindji, there is a reason behind that. Like, is it because of modern time we have forgotten everything? That's why we do not know about this? Or was this the same condition earlier also? Like few devotees who were like spiritual aspirants doing their
I think
sadhana.
it was that way because even right from day one or right from the Puranic or yes, for the Treta Yuga or Dwapara Yuga, people had this difference. Only very few people are really interested in spiritual life or the real sadhana or attaining moksha. One has to elevate from Arti, Artharthi, Jignasu, Jnani. So one has to elevate himself from one stage to the other stage. So mostly we go to the temple because it is our Ishta Devata or with some purpose. For few devotees, even without knowing what is the list, but they experience what is actually they want to get. So they enjoy that experience. So they get associated to that particular temple. They go again and again because of the experience they actually enjoy. That may be the reason. But only a handful actually know this actual mapping and they visit the temple for this purpose.
So general
But even if you
devotees
know or if you don't know, it is something like your medicine. The English medicines, even if you are not aware of the composition, once you take it, you can see the results. There is no necessity that you should be understanding all the composition of the medicines. Similar to that, if you go there, definitely you can have that experience, even if you are not aware.
So you have done this intense study. That's why you are aware of, all these mappings. Are they, all this mapping of chakra reflected in rituals and practices of temples also? Like, are there some other ways to know about, like, this temple is associated with this chakra without going into the text, but looking only through rituals and practices that temple or that deity, follows?
It might be there, but how you are going to interpret the ritual is the problem. Definitely, there are some specific pujas or specific rituals associated to the chakras that is happening in all these temples. But the problem is we don't connect to that. We go there, just stand in the queue, have darshan and just get back. That is we are not interested to go beyond that level. And once you are interested, you again start doing research like me and then come to a conclusion. That's all. But 99.9% devotees, they go to the temple just for the sake of going. And as Krishna said, that Jnani, that is the remaining 1%, for whom Bhagavan is waiting.
So if I ask you one more fundamental question, let's say, how to begin this yatra? Let's say if you want to begin this, I'm just talking from, I'm asking this question on behalf of those who just would like to make sense of how to enter into this journey of Shat Chakra. Where to begin, how to understand, how to move ahead, do they need to find text, do they need to find guru, or do they need to, visit temples? How to begin this?
They need to do everything. That is the answer, because the basic thing is they need a guru. And before that, they need that urge. That 3 basic questions. Who am I? Where I have come from? Where I am going? Even for going from one place to another place, you need a train ticket. You have the railway form or a air ticket form. You fill a form that is source and destination. And only then your travel is confirmed. But we are running our life daily without having any clue about our source and destination. We are just running daily. So if you have the question of who am I and where I am coming from and where I am going to, there starts your journey. Then comes your guru. He will guide you. Automatically, you will be introduced to texts and introduced to the kshetras, introduced to the deities, and according to your Atma Sadhana, your Atma Darshanam, or your Jnana, your Shakshakra Kshetras are revealed to you.
So on this note,
whole process put together. Not a simple answer, but it is a whole process put together.
So maybe, seekers will learn from your journey. So you started your career in management or something, in corporate world. And now you're writing most of your time about spiritual issues and Shat Chakra and all that. So how did this happen? When did your journey begin?
Probably few janmas before. Because my
Any
first...
particular incidents?
See, so many incidents have happened in my life. And generally, I don't share it in my name. I write it as a experience of a third person. And for example, my Sabarimala Yatra started at the age of 4. And when my father took me to Aryangavu, that is the Manipura Chakra, my experience was totally different. And I was totally drawn to the deity. And at the age of 4.5, I decided this is going to be my path. Believe me or not, that happened at the age of 4.5. And I was really shocked when Sinuji's book, when she told me, when she shared me her experience at Aryangavu. So it is that pull or that magnetic pull which is happening at Aryangavu is the, what to say, my journey started there, probably. I can say that.
Right. So, coming back to that question of rituals and practices, are there any symbols associated with chakras that are put in a specific temple just for the seekers who would like to decode it? Like, like snakes you talked about hunter, you talked about, various symbolism and analogy. So I'm just trying to...
No tangible symbols are not, it is not placed anywhere. Only symbolic representations are there, which you will have to understand.
Okay.
There are no tangible, symbols or signboards displayed there. But obviously there are symbolic representations and associated to rituals or the Kshetra Purana or the practices which is being specific to the temple. Definitely it is actually indication to the chakra.
Right.
So
your own experience, spiritual experience, can help you understand which chakra is associated with which temple. You cannot do
it is given in text otherwise. It is given in text, definitely, but ultimately your own experience is going to answer finally. When our own experience and the text is not tallying, somewhere it is wrong. And that's where you need your guru. And that is what is actually lacking in many so-called spiritual aspirants today. They don't have a guru. They land up nowhere, finally. So this mapping happens automatically. There is no need for text according to me. Because it is given in the text, I am just telling you, I am sharing all these things. But once you are tuned properly, definitely your progress and your experience and your Kshetra Darshanam and your inner transformation happens automatically and everything is tallying perfectly. That is the beauty of that. And each individual is different. Each mindset is different. And that is the reason, as I said earlier, you are given the liberty to choose your path. even refusing the existence of God is part of Hinduism.
I had a question.
One more question. Okay, Yanko,
Okay,
please go ahead.
sorry, it's fine. You can ask, yeah.
Okay, so you're mapping deity with chakra and then with temple. Do we have temples associated with one deity across Shat Chakra? Like one deity is there, but like Ganpati is there with Muladhara Chakra. But do we have temples of Ganpati which is related to Vishuddha Chakra, Agya Chakra, and all these
Yes, yes, for
chakras?
Ganpati it is
Or
there.
no, whenever, right.
See, in general, in Yoga Shastra, Ganapati is associated for Muladhara Chakra, and then Mahavishnu, then Shiva, then Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Ishvara, and Sadashiva. That is what is general mapping for in Yoga Shastra. In Lalita Sahasranama, you have 6 different deities. Actually, it is actually a different set of deities compared to Yoga Shastra. The Hagini, Lagini, Dakinis, the order is different in Lalita Sahasranama than the regular Yoga Shastra. That is a different concept. But even for Ganapati, as a separate deity, you have the 6 temples.
So even when you're following one deity, that deity can take you across all chakras.
Exactly.
So that is your
ultimately that deity is nothing but the Supreme Brahman. So your individual sadhana or your past karmas have associated you with that deity.
Exactly.
So that deity is going to help you cross all these chakras. He is going to give you moksha in that particular form. That's all.
Right.
Ultimately, in Sahasrara, everything is one and the same. Even you and deity are going to be the same.
All right. So it doesn't create confusion in the mind of seekers that I have to follow, specific deity for Muladhara Chakra, and then for other chakra I have to go to other deity. It doesn't matter. You can have one deity which can take you across the chakras.
Definitely, for example, if you are going to take Ganapati, as you said, that Ganapati is going to manifest as Vishnu, Ganapati is going to manifest as Shiva, and Ganapati is going to manifest as Brahma.
I think this is also mentioned in the Ganesh Atharva Shirsham, in which it says Tvam Brahmastvam Rudrastvam Agnistvam. So, yeah.
So, if your Ishta Devata is going to be Shiva, Shiva will manifest as Ganapati, Shiva will manifest as Shakti, and Shiva will manifest as Ayyappa. That's all. That is where actually the people lack. And that is the reason they fight. They create fight among deities. They are not actually fighting. The fight is actually between 2 devotees.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Uncle, you can go ahead with your question, then I will come back.
Okay, there's one question actually from one person here, Sandeep Ojha is asking, these kshetrams that you explained right now in the talk, they are for which god?
Like actually, I mentioned too many kshetrams. I'll make a tabulation and then share it with you. You can actually post it along with this.
Okay.
Yes, that will be helpful for any purpose also, I think. So I have one more question, Arvindji, that, we have restrictions related to Ayyappa temple. Okay. And that now we are all aware of that. Do we have more temples like Ayyappa where such kind of restrictions followed when it comes to, a woman? And we, when this issue was at its peak, we were getting so much news related to other temples that there are other temples in India where similar practices is followed, where men are not allowed in temples, or something like that.
Yes.
First of all, is this true? And where are those temples?
There are so many temples, not 1 or 2. There are so many temples where we have restriction for children, where there are even, I think I will say Sabarimala is better, because Sabarimala, women below 10 years and above 50 years are allowed. There are so many other temples where women of any age is not allowed. So it all depends on the the sankalpa of the deity, the energy which is actually ruling the kshetra, that may have a different impact with the body, because a composition of a body of a female is different from that of a male. The sadhana practices for a woman is different, and for a man is a different thing. And that is the reason we have restrictions for Sabarimala. It is not that Ayyappa doesn't like women. It is not like that. The chakra which is being, it is activated at Sabarimala, and which is actually giving a direct impact on the human body, definitely it will have a different kind of impact for men and for women. And that is the reason it is not only for women. Sabarimala, if we say women below 10 years and above 50 years are allowed, I'm not talking about that. Even for men who are coming to Sabarimala without proper vratam as prescribed, will definitely have a bad impact. They are going to suffer ultimately. And that is the reason they say you should not come to Sabarimala without vratam. In the same case, there are so many other temples. Even there is a Mahavishnu temple in Trivandrum, where women of any age are not allowed. There are so many reasons behind that. And there are so many temples in North India where exclusively women are allowed and men of any age not allowed. There may be different reasons for all these temples. You can't give scientific explanation or tangible proof for everything. All these are, we'll have to go to each and every individual temple and identify what is there. Only then you can understand the concept or understand the reason behind this restriction. And everything cannot be proved scientifically under the court of law, which is actually impossible.
So what happens when you deal with court in such matter? How do you argue with them? Or there is no matter, like it, we cannot argue with them. It's just you have to leave this space to devotees, seekers, and deities and temple management.
That should be the proper approach, but unfortunately, we are not allowed to that situation. The proper approach should be temple-related belief and belief matters should be dealt only with the devotees and the seekers who are actually visiting the temple with all these centuries. They are doing that. But for example, if you take Sabarimala case, the case is being handled and filed by people who have not even seen Sabarimala, or they don't even know Sabarimala, where it is located in the Indian map. That is the problem. There are so many cases like this. Everything cannot be actually proved in court of law. It is being practiced for so many years. There are some reasons and we have textual backup. And we actually call our Puranas and Itihasas mythology. That is a major blunder. It is not myth. It happened in reality. That is our belief. Everything happened in real. And based on that real incidents, so many rules have been formed. And we who believe that, definitely we are going to take care of that. And we are following that. People who don't have belief, they are no way related to this. They have so many other jobs to do. But they actually, or indirectly, they want to tamper the belief system. They want to destroy the cultural backup of the dharma and thereby impose their own vested interest and ideas. That is what is happening. The courts, actually, we are requesting that for these spiritual related and temple related issues, they should call experts who are related to this subject. Only they can give a better answer. That's what we are trying to tell. And wherever possible, we are showing the textual information and the texts which are written some 800, 900,000, 2,000 years back. We are showing the textual information. And definitely we are finding it difficult. Beyond the point, we are unable to convince them. And the problem is, in today's scenario, all Hindu temples, especially only Hindu temples, are controlled by the government. And they are putting tickets for darshan, special darshan, You pay 1,000 rupees, you can stand close to the Lord. If you don't have money, you'll have to stand for 2 days in queue. Unfortunately, what is happening, today's younger generation, when they are seeing this, they don't have any clue that the temple is controlled by government, and the government has changed this as a business sector. Excuse me. And they think all Hindu temples are commercial places. There are no such things in other religious places of worship. But who is doing all these things? Only the government is doing this. And the very idea of we have actually lost our right. It is the fundamental right as per court of law that Hindu temples are to be managed by devotees. But what is happening in reality is government is managing the temple. And they have made it as a business center. And even, unfortunately, even the Honorable Court is approaching the case in this angle. When most of the temples were taken over by the government, a promise was given that the age-old practices and customs will not be disturbed during independence and even after that. But what is happening in reality is the government itself is actually acting against the customary practices and traditions of the particular temple. That is the sad part actually. So we are finding it very difficult to convince the court, but definitely we are not giving up, we are fighting. At some point of time, they will realize what is actually the reality, and definitely our glory will be restored. We have that faith.